G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we're reviewing round 2 of the AFL Fantasy calendar. Let's go!
Just done it from nowhere. 5 to go from inside the centre. Shade from the boundary. Dusty. Yes! You're a magician. Petrarca. The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I am your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, joined as always by the legend himself, the future hat winner, Luke Rogerson, mate, and triathlete, Luke Rogerson.
Well,
how are you?
I could say the same to you, mate. Congratulations on the half triathlon yesterday.
Yeah. True.
We got to be full transparency, but yeah. No, it's good.
No, we're back in business. We obviously had a big round of footy to talk about, and one fewer game on the weekends than normal, just the 8 games. So best 18 in AFL fantasy context. It's a bit of an interesting different spin on the start of the season than we're used to. I don't know if we've seen the full effect until maybe this round, because we had 2 teams on the bye that were maybe not as relevant in Brisbane and Carlton compared to maybe the other bye rounds that we're going to see later. But
to be honest, I don't think we'll see the full effect of this until after all these early bye rounds are done, because yes, you're right, there'll be people who hold Whitfield, Flanders, Green, the likes of these players, but there'll also be people who make trades, and so we're not going to see the full effect of like whether they've sacrificed anything to make those trades until later. So it's a really interesting first part of the year, and it's uncharted territory for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So, let's get stuck into reviewing the games, and we always love to start at my favourite segments to wrap up and round up the week that was with some BOGs and Flogs.
And the winner of the Norm Smith Medal.
You're an embarrassment to what you do, mate. You're an embarrassment.
He lives up to it every weekend, I reckon.
He is. He's always up there. Let's talk about the first game, and this, at least for you and I, Luke, started off with a good game, a few good results for us. But I'm going to give the best on ground to probably, I think, the player that spent the highest amount of time in my team over the preseason.
He didn't leave.
And never left. And that is Jack Steele, the man of steel. And I almost mozzed him as well. I'd reversed my anti-moz on Twitter. But he was phenomenal.
Wouldn't have been popular.
He was phenomenal. He had 8 tackles in the first half, cruised to 120. And in a game that you watched the last quarter, but the entire game was just the most uncontested, free-flowing, low stoppage game. And he still, I think, had 10 tackles in that game, which is just absolutely freakish. He's just one of the best tacklers in the game and one of the best fantasy scorers. So he's back to, I think, his 110 ways, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, hopefully you haven't gone and mozzed him there. But I'm normally not sympathetic with my flogs, but I have been sympathetic. I'm not a Dacos owner, but anyone who had Dacos, I think, would be giving him the flog. Although from our perspective, it was boggery from Dacos to go mid-60s, maybe. Yeah. And the other one that was a little bit of a tough watch for owners was the Bonner.
Yeah,
he was flaccid.
He was very flaccid, mate. He was didn't rise to the occasion on this one. And
it depended what quarter, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right. He was it was a bit slow to the party with that first quarter, and got going, and then up and down very much so. So we'll talk about him later. Let's go to the Friday night game, which was Adelaide versus Geelong. Another one of my boys here, best on ground, Jordan Dawson. And if people had him in their team, potentially a VC option, as he was for me. Leading scorer for the entire round with his 131, I believe, and 12 tackles to get him there. Just put anyone at ease who was a bit panicky after the first week where he went sub 90, got to 89. Now he's averaging 110. So he's back exactly where you want him to be.
That's the reason you've picked a guy like that. Like, he's dropped a little bit of value, but that you're not picking him for that. You're picking for that captain score. So well done on that one. There wasn't actually too much floggery from this one. A lot of fantasy relevant players scored well, but I just thought it was interesting that Adelaide chose to continually kick Tom Stewart the ball. I think the bloke had 11 marks, and I think he almost had 11 intercept marks.
I think there might have been one actual genuine mark from his teammates.
That's a guy that doesn't need help getting the ball. He can find marks himself, but Adelaide said, hey, Have 10. Here you go.
Here's 60 points here, mate.
So for someone that doesn't own Stewart, that for me is floggish behaviour from Adelaide.
Yeah, it's hard to read into that. So it's like, okay, we had an awesome game, but it's like, is he going to take 10 intercept marks? I don't know how to feel about that game for Stewart. Let's go to North versus Freo. Best on ground, I think he's going to be very popular trade-in target this week, and someone that I think you especially were very keen on in the preseason. I might have maybe even talked you out of it, but Tom Powell. Yeah, there he is. Tom Powell is best on ground. 113, kicked 2 goals, was the leading CBA getter for North as well.
Well, I certainly wasn't the only person, but I think a lot of people looked at Powell and thought, hey, this midfield role's real. And I think from memory, what kind of scared us off it a little bit was the Simpkin injury, the flow-on effects of that, and then the fact that when the round 1 teams came out, there was no Phillips, there was no Simpkin, and we kind of flagged the idea of, are we going to see that Powell role? And we did. We didn't see it to the extent in round 1 that we saw it in.
Well, the role was there, but the
scoring is what I mean.
Was maybe not there. So now we've seen both.
I didn't watch the game, but a little highlights package I watched today looked very, very good. So I think we'll talk about him a little bit later on as well.
Absolutely. Let's go on and talk about the flog on this one. And before you name him, I wonder if people can guess why the soundbite.
No question about it. I am ready to get hurt again.
This is the roller coaster. This is a gift that keeps on giving. Hayden Young. I'm not going to straight up declare that it's over. But
welcome to the Hayden Young experience. Let's go.
But I ain't fucking leaving.
We're all up in it.
I'm staying around. So 75 is dog shit from a guy that you want to be going around the 100 mark. But the role, it was still there.
It was still there. We were a bit worried with a couple of injuries for Freo in their back line that he might go back.
But they stuck fat with the role. Like I said, we didn't watch this game, so we were scrambling Twitter and stats and everything to try and work out where he was actually playing. If he'd been put to the half-back line and he got the 75, I'd be a lot more concerned than I am currently.
Agreed, yes. I do agree, but it is just, if you owned Hayden Young last year, you know he's capable of these types of games. You know he's capable of, but he is also capable of going big. So if you're a new owner, you might be a bit panicky, but rest assured, as someone who's ridden this ride for a long time, just sit back and enjoy it. Let's go. On to the next one. Hawthorn versus Melbourne. Best on ground performance. The junk time king, I'm going to dub this man. Christian Salem's fourth quarter gets the best on ground performance. 61 points, 9 marks in that final quarter to absolutely save his score. And also a special shout out to James Sicily's first quarter where he went 69 points. So 2 half-backs in 2 quarters combined for an average of 140 points. So just a very waxing field game.
The reason that his fourth quarter was the bog was because his first 3 quarters were the flog. It goes hand in hand. He was everything we didn't want him to be in those first 3 quarters, and people who picked him for that awesome midfield role, we were just
vanished.
We were just left with our dicks in our hands, going, "Well, what the fuck's going on?" Because he didn't look close to it.
No, he looked absolutely just nowhere near it. I mean, you also got on the run sheet here, Hawthorn's unpredictable game style is also a special shout out for a flog.
I don't want to make it all about me, but I thought picking Carl Amon might be a good thing to start the season. Round 1, I see that Hawthorn's game styles changed completely. There's no waxing, so I think, fuck, Amon's in trouble here. Yeah. Second game, I watched Sicily essentially take 13 of the least contested, most uninspiring marks, uninspiring. And I'm thinking, well, okay, are we back to waxing? Well, can we get Carl on to have a little bit of...
he was off on the bench at times.
Can he wax it up a little bit? So I don't know. I don't want to be too hard on any teams, but Hawthorn for me is like, well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to do...
first quarter, as someone who is, watching it from... Like, we were watching it with a friend of ours who's a Hawthorn supporter, and watching that first quarter, as a Hawthorn fan, would have to have been one of the most disappointing quarters to watch. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. And and like they completely changed it up after that quarter. And I can definitely see why. It was the worst quarter I think of footy I've seen so far this year from a team's perspective. Now it was great for the scoring for Sicily. Now unfortunately Carl Amon spent a bit of that waxing time on the bench.
He did,
but it also meant players in the half back line on the opposite team were nowhere near it. Like it just never went down Melbourne's end.
Yeah.
So very interesting sort of game in general in terms of like how it all went down. One of the more interesting and random games this season. Next game, Sydney versus Essendon. Best on ground up. Isaac Heaney has been the pick of the season so far. He is one of the highest rises in cash so far. He's averaging 120 points for someone who was priced at 80. So he's 40 points above where he priced at the start of the year. He's flown up in price. And if you like Calvinator from the Traders and you didn't start with him, he's left you in the dust a little bit here.
Well, I'd go as far to say that I wouldn't be here if I hadn't picked him. Yeah. I would have thrown the toys and
it's tough. First of all, shout out to Calvin for fronting up for a podcast.
That's what I mean, Calvin. You're a better man than me.
That's tough, man.
This side of the screen it would be vacant had I not picked him. So I think he is the bog for sure. Now the flog, I don't think too many people got on the train, but the Perky boy didn't quite deliver.
Archie Perkins.
He didn't deliver what he did the previous week on a similar role too. He had high CBAs, so I just put him there as a flog. There wasn't much floggish behaviour, but if you did get behind that score, you didn't get rewarded.
And the role was still kind of there.
That's what I mean.
Like, the role. Like, I think he was second behind Merritt, but still up in the CBAs. We didn't have any Parish.
He was not perky. He was saggy,
he was limp. I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. Flaccid. You can go join Bonner in the corner over there, in the flaccid corner.
The flaccid. We got a flaccid corner, right?
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the Bulldogs versus Gold Coast. A bit to talk about this game. Not many huge scorers. Again, it was over in Mars. So again, we're going to take the jet lag factor, the interstellar jet lag, which is always a bit of a downer on your fantasy scoring. But I want to give a shout out to a different pal, Will Powell, for just being.
Is he saying pal?
Pal. I'm saying pal for just being one of the most consistent backline players for the Gold Coast. We've had. The guy who we'll talk about soon in Sexton, and also Connor Buderick stink it up over these first few rounds. Ooh. But Will Powell has remained consistent, and he is someone that, because of his early bye round, we weren't really considering, but coming out of it their bye next week, might be someone that we maybe need to put back onto our fantasy radar and classic team. So he's definitely someone that deserves a mention as the best on ground.
Flog behaviour, you mentioned it before. The sexual tiger was not on the prowl. He was more of an endangered species, more of the Siberian tiger than the sexual tiger. We didn't watch this one, but it has since been revealed he was moved forward at the end of the day.
Yeah, no good.
Which is just popping up flags, everybody which way. So we're going to talk about him a little bit more later. Is he a guy that you want to get off of this week?
That is going to be a big question, I think, this week. Let's then move on to Richmond versus Port Adelaide. Yep. Best on ground. I'm just going to give it to Zach Butters. He is just an absolute gun. He had an awesome, that third quarter, I think it was. I think he had 40-plus points. 117 was his score. And, 2 tons out of 2 games so far for someone who people might have been scared off by that ankle roll in the preseason. Luckily, I found it within me to start him. And
what up, mate?
Yeah, thank you.
Not only you, a few of us did.
Yeah. But it's good to see that. Obviously, there was a few flags. Some people were spruiking that he was 80% of himself, but he is. He looks like the Zach Butters we know and love. So he's best on ground.
The flog from this game. Wines, did we start with this guy? And I can't even say the pun with the smile because I'm so unimpressed by these performances. But to be fair, should we have seen this coming? You and I even both said at points, Rosie and Butters have the keys. They're brum, 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 they're starting the car.
I was so anti-Wines to start the preseason, and I just got more and more keen, but maybe I should have just stuck with my initial gut instinct, hey?
I think the writing was probably always there on the wall, was thinking of like, okay, what he'd been in the previous 2 seasons, accompanied by the fact that we were expecting Butters and Rosie to both be 110 guys.
Yeah.
I know the role was going to be there, but
this is where I think sometimes, and this is difficult, one of the most difficult things in AFL fantasy when it comes to deciphering coach speak. I honestly think it's one of the hardest things we have to work out, is when a coach says he's like going to be 100% the number 1 mid.
Yeah.
Does that actually mean what we as fantasy coaches think it's going to mean?
I
Or
think
is he
number one mid he was never... I don't think...
Was that the terminology? But he was like, he's back in the inside. He's back to his best, I think was some of the terminology also used. But back to his best doesn't translate to back to his fantasy scoring best.
Yeah.
He might just be, quality to the team and doing the right things. And there were some good things he did. But he's not that outside guy. He doesn't go and get like those cheap +6, Rosie and Butters get all those. His tackling probably needs to be better for us. Like, there were some good tackles, but just not enough.
Yeah, it's right. I guess I shouldn't be so harsh. Like, he's had a decent game. I think he had 25 disposals. Just a lot of it is not fantasy relevant stuff.
It's just disappointing for fantasy coaches.
We'll certainly talk about him in more detail. Let's get to this last game. Give us your bog.
I'm going to give it to Harvey Thomas. He just smashed it out of the park. He was someone that really caught my eye in that first practice match. I think it was against Gold Coast. He was disappointing in the Community Series games and then the Round 0 game. So we didn't end up starting with him, but he showed what I saw in that first one here and really put himself on the map. Now, he's got his bye round now, but he's sitting there with a -24 break even at the moment. And definitely has put his hand up. Tunning up as a rookie is no small feat at all. What have you got going on here?
Oh, nothing. I was just, all good. For the flog for this one, this for me is the AFL scheduling because the AFL
what's your gripe here?
Well, they've gone and ruined a good thing because Tom Green to me was a lay down misère. Like he's a pick that.
Oh, okay, I see where you're going. Yeah,
he's a pick that at any other fantasy year, you look at the run, you look at the start, and you go, beautiful. I'm going to get some value out of Tom Green, and because they've given him a round
West
3
Coast,
bye,
bang bang.
It's meant that. And I'm not downplaying those people who have been aggressive and picked him. Like, good on you.
I think it's worked out.
It's correct. I think it has, but it's just made an easy decision into a unsure decision, and I was on the wrong end of that.
I don't know if you saw this today, but do you know that Tom Green himself is in the top 100 for AFL Fantasy at the moment?
Not fair. Conflict of interest.
What the fuck, man? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I'll be suing.
Hopefully, I wonder if Tom Green, if you are watching or listening to this podcast,
why would he be listening to this podcast?
Yeah, maybe we should be listening to him. I don't know.
Insider trading, Tom.
Let us know. Let us know what's going on for the Giants, and give us some insight information.
I wonder, like, are they when those players play? Are they ineligible from winning?
I don't think they can win prizes. I think
imagine
that's
Tom Green just like rolling off in his eye like, sorry guys, you got a little bit of inside info.
So really we should be hoping that he gets top 100 because then 101st
gets the hat. All those AFL players top 100.
Yeah, let's go AFL players. We'll cheer him on. But no, I looked at his team today. It's
good.
It's a fucking good team. I'll tell you what.
My goodness.
It's not like he's one of those players that like he's just rode all those early bye. Like it looks like a good team. So
he's got himself.
He does have himself. Yeah, okay. He has himself in there.
That to me, like you have to have Tom Green now because maybe in the back of his mind he's going out there going like,
thinking about
it. I might just run.
He had himself. He had Whitfield. I think he had Cadman as the 3 Giants. So sometimes the AFL players they can load up on their teammates. He's going
for that extra plastic. He's been laying on top for those cuddles.
Yep.
So. Well,
shout out Tom Green.
I guess I know who my trade target is next week.
All right, let's move on to the next segment of the show, which is basically just a bit of a strategy chat to sort of talk about the, I guess, general philosophies that we're going to be discussing at this time of the year.
Moth flying in here, mate. Did you open your wallet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There actually was a moth.
AFL Fantasy doesn't pay the bills these days. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Did I get it?
Yeah, we're not to the chopping block segment yet, mate. Yeah, there you go. Just scenes over here in Queensland.
I got it.
Let's talk best 18.
Yep, let's do it.
Did it affect any of our moves? Should it affect any of our moves moving forward? After one round, like we said, it's probably the round that least, I guess, is influential with most of us only having like a Zach Williams, for example, on the buys.
Yep.
But with these next few rounds, we're going to have more and more players on the buy round. Does it affect what we are doing moving forward, different to 22 players counting?
My initial thoughts are, and it's probably the case with most things, that it's going to depend on your team and how many of those players you have, and also what your cover looks like. Like for example, like my backline just has Lockie Whitfield on the bye this coming week, and so for me, with the way that Blake Howes has been performing, I feel comfortable that I don't need to trade out Lockie Whitfield because, fingers crossed, I'm going to get Howes, which may be 20 to 25 points less than what Whitfield might give me. So I'm kind of like satisfied with that move, especially Whitfield's been going well. If, however, you had like Whitfield, Green, Flanders, Sexton,
maybe
like
some
all
people.
these
I know
guys.
some people have got like Rowell and stuff out there.
So then I think it does completely dictate, what you're doing this week in terms of like maybe chasing some points on field. The one that I'm like interested in, I haven't talked to you about this yet. Normally I'd probably chat with you like off air first, but Sexton is interesting for me. So like, it was horrible. The weekend, I didn't see it, but from what I'm reading, it's horrible. He was in a shit score.
Yeah, so he's one of the, for my team, he was a player that his score dropped off for me. So I think he was the worst scorer on my field, actually.
Shit playing back, move to the forward line. That's a death sentence. But he was playing at Mars Stadium.
Yeah. Yes, good point.
He's now on his bye, which we were going to have anyway.
Yeah, we picked him knowing that.
He has a break even of 40. So, like, what I'm kind of saying is, like, you kind of were probably planning, if he was doing everything you wanted to do, you were planning on probably holding him at his bye because you got a rookie to come on field that's going to score something similar and then ride his cash gen after his bye.
Yeah.
Do you just like sit this week and see what happens next week, or?
So from a scoring point of view, him being on the bye is not the end of the world. Like, you paid like, what was he, 370 or 380K.
And we've got rookies that have been doing what he's been doing.
Yeah, so he was priced at like a 35-40 from memory.
Yeah.
So you put him on your field, you get a rookie on, they've got a chance to pop, maybe score. Like it wasn't last week, it didn't count. So from a scoring perspective, that moth is back. Oh, whack the laptop.
I can't whack the laptop. Don't whack my laptop, you spud.
I just smushed it.
Yeah, on my brand new MacBook.
So I think from a scoring perspective,
the
the incentive of trading him out to improve your scoring is maybe not there. But I think for the reason I think he is a decent trader is because his cash gen is stalled. He's obviously not going to make any cash this week because he's not playing. He's
got a break even of 40. I know that's a lot higher than we want from a bloke. But like we were anticipating in that back flank role, him being like 75, 80 guy? Or is that too ambitious?
I think it might be a bit ambitious.
Would you be filthy if after the bye he goes back into that good role and he's back, playing not Interstellar and he starts giving you 75s and 80s and you've now missed?
I think maybe. He is also an option that if he does do that, he's cheap enough you could honestly trade him back in. But there's the risk of, obviously, what if you hold him for a week? He comes back and he's playing forward more, or the scoring isn't there, and then the week he comes back, it's best 22. Then it hurts you because the week after this week is the gather round.
The gather round, yeah.
So it's a case of could I have just gotten off this guy 2 weeks ago and I've held him for 2 weeks and it's given me nothing as a result. So it's an interesting discussion point, but I do think that. He's kind of done his role, right? He's made 88K.
Yeah, I guess if you find the cash to get him to like pow, it's like just chalk it up.
It's just you sort of just jumping onto the next guy and sort of leapfrogging, and it's not someone that we ever really were super attached to in terms of he was never going to be top 6 or anything like that. So I think those were the guys that more so you're trying to hold. So I think. From a cash generation point of view, it makes more sense to trade him. But there is reasons that you would try to hold on if you've got other things you've got to plug up in your team. Okay,
we dived a little bit into the weeds there, but question back to you, best 18. Did you see anything?
I do think that there's something about it. So, for example, like in our scenarios, or in my scenario specifically, I traded out a player and I actually had an extra rookie on field than I did in round 1. But I was totally fine doing that because of the best 18.
Worked well for you, mate. You had a good week.
I scored pretty well. I don't think... the player I traded out, which was Mackenzie, his score wouldn't have counted for me anyway, so I sat on more cash than I normally would. I had 270k in my bank,
but
I don't think that cash would have made my team much better, given the fact that it was best 18. So
maybe there's an argument to be said that for these future buy rounds, if you feel like you've made your trades, you're happy with them, and you don't feel like the cash that you can spend will make your team better.
It might be a play to prioritise if there is a trade-in target. So after this round, for example, we might be looking at a Sam Flanders to come into our team. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you use this round to cash up a little bit in an effort to get him in next week, assuming that you're not sort of downgrading a premium to like a shit scoring player. So if you're downgrading someone who's going to be a best 18 scorer down to someone who might not be, then you're taking a haircut. But if you're doing someone who's kind of on the brink anyway, to a cash cow or a rookie or something like that, then you're just generating more cash with no extra risk of you losing points on field, if that makes sense. So that was sort of my rationale as to why I was happy to go more rookie fix-ups in that first round, because I didn't think it would cost me points in the end, and it didn't. So I do think there's something to that. I also think that it's more important than ever to get those captains correct.
Man.
So make sure we have those 2 bites of the cherry. A lot of people need to remember that we've got those buy-round players that can be used at the very end of the round.
Yep.
So for this week, we've got a Monday game. So you can use a VC option all the way through to Sunday, and then even on the Monday, you can then flick your player out. So you've got the pick of the bunch for anyone on the VC calendar. You don't have to worry about the early games or anything like that.
We had a good discussion on the weekend, I thought, when I was talking about whether to take Max's 107 as VC. And when you look at a 107, you think like, I don't really want that to be my captain score. But in these early rounds, you think about what you have to gain. So like Butters was the option I was going to go to for captain. So Butters in my team, he went 117.
Yes.
10 points.
So you lost 10 points.
So I lost. That's the fact of the matter is I lost 10 points. But had I rolled the dice with Butters and Butters got injured on a low score, or Butters, whatever happened, if it was a calamity, you get 60 points or something, I'm proper fucked.
Cooked. Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think that early in the season, maybe just be a little more conservative on those VC scores that you might take, even if you set yourself that line of like 110 or something. Maybe 107 ain't that bad. I know other people you got 130, I think, from Dawson, and that sucks for me. But I don't think at this stage
you don't need to swing for the fences, because if you think, okay, you got a 107, what do you expect Butters to average? I would almost put my line on him being a 107. So yes, he had a positive matchup. So my money was, if I had to put a line, I'd expect him to be better. But what are you risking? And the risk, I think, is more. You're risking 107 points to gain 10. It's not really that much of a decision. The other thing is, I'm not sure if people are aware, but if you have a captain that maybe, say, gets injured and is not in your best 18 scores, that doesn't mean that your vice captain gets doubled. You're stuck with the captain doubled.
Wouldn't that be good?
Which would be the worst. Imagine your captain getting doubled and not even counting. So effectively, you've gone without a captain that round. So I know that question has come up a few times, but Let's move on to talking about the premiums who are on their buys. We talked about Sexton for a bit.
So people who have Tom Green, I think, is the massive case here.
Yeah, I think it's Tom Green, Whitfield, and Flanders. Probably the big three.
Green for me is the biggest, because I think there's he could go and prove me wrong, but I don't know if there's too much more value to make with Tom Green. But if you have him sitting there on your bench, you're missing more than $1 million worth of points. Is that this week?
Yeah.
So if you were an owner of Tom Green, you've had an awesome 3-week run, would you get aggressive and go and try and find $1 million worth of points for this week? Or would you love to just keep him there and lock him away for next week?
It's so hard. You've started Tom Green. He's given you 127 average.
How could you trade that out? That's so tough.
He's probably given you more because of the 2 rounds. He's gone 145, 120. So,
but he doesn't come into super tough matchups.
So he comes up against Gold Coast Saints, Carlton, Bruce. They're not too bad at matchups.
He seems like he's immune to matchups at the moment.
He is currently priced at an average of 118.1. This could be a Goulden situation that I did of last year.
Yeah.
Now, what I would be doing, if I was to trade him, I'd want to trade him to another premium. So say, for example, you didn't have a Jack Steele. You didn't have a Zach Butters. They're probably the main 2 that I'm looking at, where they're premiums, captain options, but still value. I think those are the kind of names I'd be looking at. I don't think I'd be just sidewaysing him to someone like a Caleb Sarong, because you're going to get another captain option this week, and he's probably of a similar level in terms of scoring ability, but you're not gaining the cash. They're very basically the exact same price, and it like I said, it just feels very sidewaysy, and the opportunity cost, I think, is maybe the bigger the bigger miss in that scenario.
I think you'd be lucky if your decision was made easy with other things to fix up as well.
Yeah.
So
like if Tom Green's your only player on the bye, it's fine. If you got Tom Green and Whitfield, even that I think is okay. If you have Tom Green, Whitfield, and Flanders, then I'm trading one of them. I think if you've got more than two, in a perfect world, one player, one premium on their buy round, I think is manageable.
We should just tweet Tom Green and see if he's trading himself
I was going to say, I'd love to know if he's trading himself.
I would just do whatever he was doing.
If he trades himself, we all jump off. But if he holds, I don't know. Maybe we just follow the leader there. I would love to know. Any thoughts in trading a Whitfield? Like, obviously, I think both you've got Whitfield as well. Hey, we've both got Whitfield.
Yeah, I got more shit to fix up.
I'm personally not considering trading him, but he is the only premium on the buy round for me, so it's not too much of a headache to just cover that. But there are some decent options. The defence putting their hand up. I just think that for me, I think he's pretty clearly a top.
Does it look like it's like real misty up near our tree?
I was thinking that. I'm not 100% sure why.
So you're smoking hot takes, I reckon.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure why.
I don't think it always looks like that. Maybe
we'll have to suss that out post-production. Let's go and talk about the last topic here before we move on to the chopping block. Just want to talk about some of the guys who were the hot names of last week. Bonner, Fife, Billings, all had, I would say, underwhelming. Maybe Billings is a bit harsh, but underwhelming scores. Does this teach us any lessons about maybe jumping the gun on some of these mid-prices?
I don't know if it does, because that, like, in the last few years, my understanding, that's what the game's built on, is getting on those mid prices that are going to pop early.
Yep.
Like, you're going to miss some, but you've got 2 trades each week. You're going to hit some like that. That to me is kind of the thing. I mean, I know you don't own any of these guys, so it's not probably something that's come across your mind. I'm a Fife owner at the minute, and even though throughout the preseason, I was definitely one of those people saying he's going to be a sub risk on any given occasion.
It's something we could have foreseen.
Exactly, but even I'm maybe not even considering trading him this week, which maybe is a foolish thing, but like, he's given us a score that is still
it's more than his price at.
Exactly. Yep. So he's still like got that break even that I think he's going to manage.
And if he wasn't subbed, then he would have been someone that would have counted
like
in your
an 80
in your best 18.
The coach, I think, mentioned that they're coming on to the 6-day break.
Correct. And I think they're travelling and staying out on the road, I believe, as well. So
I know that's a flag there as well, but I think like he's coming off the subbed game. So are you subbing him in this game so that he's ready to play a full game?
You would hope so.
Next week? That's kind of my thinking. For me, you know, maybe I'll have egg on my face, but for me, it wasn't something where I saw it and thought I've got more pressing issues, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah. The only thing I will say is that some of the guys that popped in the first week and didn't pop in the second week, a lot of them were those guys that there were things that were to change. So, for example, in Bonner's case, you had someone like Sinclair coming back in.
That to me that's a difference enough for concern.
Yeah, so someone like Archie Perkins. Now, it didn't happen. Parrish was to come back in, but that was the kind of leaning why I sort of went to the rookies in favour, because just having that extra week of data to have those extra things, you know, play out.
Yeah.
The guys who maintained and were the right options, you know, the guys that you do jump on in the Matt Crouch and the D'Ambrosios, those players did everything they did in round 1 and nothing really changed in their round 2 sides. So I think for me, the lesson or the takeaway there is if there is a guy popping, but that you know that there is a player coming back or something's going to change in their team, that's a bit more of a let's give it another week. You don't have to jump on them that round, because if Bonner went off again, like, I would have no worries jumping on him this week, even though I'm paying a bit more, but I'd have a bit more certainty. So I think for me, that's the lesson that I'm taking away from it myself.
He was a particularly interesting one in the fact that he effectively had 2 quarters where he didn't score and then 2 where he went really well. So I think there's still the capability there for him to hurt us, given we're not owners.
Could be, yep.
But it definitely felt a little bit
You're not going to trade him in this week now.
Correct.
But yeah, there's a little bit interesting there. All right, let's get on to the next segment here, where we will talk about some of these guys. Where's the sound bite?
No music.
The sound did not come in. But we're Kung Fu fighting. We are going to be talking about... We're going to chop some of these players out of our side.
You know what we should fucking chop is this software.
This software. It's been more temperamental than I mean, it went all right last year. I don't know what's going on in 2024
get the chop, mate.
with Stream Labs. But let's talk about the chopping block. You can see on screen here, I've got some rankings next to them. I wouldn't necessarily take them too, hard and fast at this stage. We'll probably go through with a concrete ranking on Friday's show. We're back to Friday Lives. But these are the guys that I think you can chop from your team. Nick Caulfield is absolutely someone you have to chop from your side.
Poor bastard.
2.
Yeah.
2-point game. Obviously, he was injured. He gave you the 44 last week. So he was someone that was very keen on trading last week. Hopefully, you followed through. But it was very reasonable for some people to hold him because there were a few other holes that other teams needed to patch up.
Yeah.
But now he's injured and he needs to be traded. Jai Newcomb. This one hurts. For people who started there.
I have a lot of sympathy because there was every chance that I was starting
I
there.
really wanted to start with him at certain points. And the rookie shuffle to get Roberts on my field saved me from this pick.
Yeah.
But he was in my side until that point, until round 0.
Yeah, but you got to get off now. At least there's a few options that are popping that you could probably get on.
Yeah, and there's every chance I do absolutely think he's going to score a lot better than this. He is still their number 1 midfielder by a fair way, but I've heard some people talk about this, but like banking on just natural progression being the reason that you would improve is always a tough one.
With
but
danger, I think.
yeah, he is. Look, no doubt I think he's going to be better than this, but his price is going down, and I think you do need to jump ship.
Yeah.
The next guy here is Alex Sexton on the list for me. It's just a matter of, to me, he's done his role. He's made 88K. He's not playing this week. Now, that's not necessarily a worry about his scoring, but his cash is obviously going to go nowhere. So if you can jump across to someone whose price is still rising, down or up or sideways, I think any option is okay. I think that is a decent option for someone who is not a keeper. He's not someone we're going to have in our side. His role is there to make cash. The break-even of 40 is obtainable, but if he goes 70, it's like he makes a little bit, and if you see that roll come back, you can always jump back on. So he's not going to completely get away from you even if he does do well. So there are other players I think you can jump onto from Sexton.
So can I get selfish here? Because these 4 guys, next 4 guys are all in my team. So you've got the Sex Pistol at the top, then you've got Wine, Salem, and Amon.
Yes.
Salem, of these guys, I actually think Salem, with that saviour of a fourth quarter, has the lowest break-even of them.
It does.
Amon has the highest, is my understanding, with about a break-even of 100, and Wines' break-even is maybe like a... Check.
That's a good question. I think he's about that 80 mark.
So 81, yeah.
81.
So obviously Sexton's going to score 0 this week. He's on the bye. So the only thing I'm kind of contemplating here is like Carl Amon, for example. If he gives me another 80, I'm going to lose a little bit of value there. Whereas I know I'm not going to kind of lose anything on Sexton. Is there anything to say that I should be prioritising that, or is it just a straight fact of like, Sexton's giving me 0 this week. He's on the bye. I may as well just jump off that and see what Amon gives me.
Well, if your concern is cash, if you think about, okay, I'm going to trade Sexton to someone with the intent of them making cash, is the cash you're going to make from the player that you're trading to going to be more than the cash that you expect Amon to lose? Now, there is a chance that Amon, comes out and scores 100. That's not out of the realm of possibility. He might lose some cash. If he goes 80 again, he'll probably lose maybe, 15, 20K. But are you offsetting that by getting on someone? And then obviously, even if he scores 80, that's going to be more points on field than someone like, obviously, a Sexton's going to give you. So the points is in an Amon's favour. If it's simply a cash thing, remember the opportunity cost as well by trading him instead of someone like Sexton who's not making cash is also there to be considered. So that's kind of my thoughts there. He does have the kind of thing about him where he's the player he's not going bad enough that he's like a priority trade out, but he's not going good enough that you're happy with, and it is the kind of player you could kind of get stuck with.
It really makes it hard because I hear all these very great fantasy minds talking about the quick, decisive move off that player that's not giving you what they want, and I'm just in this unfortunate situation where I've got Wines, Salem, end aim on, probably to add to that.
Yeah,
pickle.
I think Wines and Salem are the very interesting ones to me. I'm pretty keen to move on Ollie Wines. I think the role is not as good as what I thought it was going to be. He also has had 2 really friendly matchups so far, and he hasn't done much with them. Like, he went up in CBAs, but he was still 4th. Yeah. He was behind Willem Drew. He was behind Rosie. He was behind Butters in terms of CBAs. He doesn't appear to have the ability to hit a ceiling score, and he's also clogging a midfield spot. And that's the biggest thing for me with someone like him, and that's why I've got him above a Christian Salem as a trade-up priority. There's a world where you can have 4 rookies in your midfield.
Yeah, I've played with that today.
Which is, I think, if we were to rewind it back, probably the play, if you were to structure up and just have nearly no rookies in the other lines and just put them all in your midfield. So when his scoring is like 10, 15 points better than the rookie that's sitting on your bench, I want to get rid of him. I want to get him up to a big dog player or go right down to someone who's going to make me cash and do a restructure and fix up my line. So for me, he's the guy out of those mid-priced picks that I'm keen on trading the most. Christian Salem, the Port matchup worries me.
Yeah.
Especially if he's playing half-back.
The good thing, I mean, this is not going to be necessarily hugely conducive to scoring, but we know at least Port are a front half team, which means the ball will be in that area if he's playing half back, but they don't necessarily allow teams to wax, which I guess I'm not sure on the 100% on the stats, but I wouldn't imagine that defenders score hugely against Port just because of the pressure, but at least the ball might be there. Yeah,
there's also a realm of possibility that I know his role changed on a dime. There's a potential that it changes back. Yeah. There was a few injuries.
But he didn't even look good in the midfield role.
He didn't look great in the midfield role either. But
what the fuck? This is giving me the shit, son. It's not even like fucking. I don't know what's going on. Maybe there's something on the camera.
We're gonna.
Should I go lick the camera?
No, please do not lick the camera.
I reckon it is something on the camera. I reckon I've put my fingerprint right on the camera.
Could be there. Do you want to give it a quick wipe or?
I don't have a wipe.
Oh, okay. We'll have to live with it for this podcast. We'll wipe it for the next one. Let's go and talk about some other players, not on the list on screen here, but some discussion that also is required. More so question marks are here. I don't know if I'm hard and fast about these players, but could you trade out someone like a Riley Bonner? Now, we were all trading him in last week. He came out, gave us a 60. His break-even's still sub 40.
I don't think you're trading him
Do you give him another week?
Yep, you do.
You give him another week, best 18?
I think so.
I think that one's pretty fun. I definitely don't think he's a trade-in target anymore. You want to see how it all shapes out with Sinclair coming back. What about these next two? I think this is a bigger discussion. Can you trade Nick Dacos?
No.
You don't think so? I think there's a world where you can.
You got to see it out, don't you?
If he didn't have a bye, I would say no. But he's got a bye round coming up. He's got a Finn McGuinness round coming up.
The Finn McGuinness round. But I just... Would your team have to be in a pretty luxurious position to be considering that over all of these other things?
I'd say so. I'd say you'd probably have dodged a few bullets for this to be a play. But it's...
And who would you be trading to? Like, is this if you've missed Sheasel or something? Like,
yeah, you could go to Sheasel if you missed him. If you like the looks of like an Isaiah Wanganeen-Millera, or you wanted to go right down to a D'Ambrosio and get another player right up. Somewhere else, restructure of sorts.
My answer is still, I think it's be a little bit spicy for me, but I'm glad I'm not in the situation.
I'm not in the situation, but I do think when we talk about premiums falling, you've got a tag coming that we all expect, you've got a buy coming, his price is going to plummet. If there is a way for you to restructure to get a better team out there for your best 18 rounds, I do think that there's a world where trading Nick Dacos is actually the right play. Now, like you said, I do think it's a luxurious position. I haven't got him in my top 5, but I wouldn't say no, depending on what you could do with that trade. And then the last one here, our boy, Hayden Young. Are we fed up with him already? Is he a trade-out target? What are your thoughts on Hayden Young?
Absolutely not. My biased opinion. It sucks because it's like a 75 on a good roll, but the good roll, I think, for me is key to that one.
I do want to say, as funny as it sounds...
Don't tell me you've considered trading him.
No, I haven't considered trading him, but what I was going to say is like he's coming from a half-back role, so you kind of look at him and go, oh, this guy's going to feast in his matchups against North Melbourne. I actually think that he's going to do much better this week against a team like Adelaide with stoppage after stoppage after stoppage.
Get in there, tackle. I can't believe how good a tackler he is.
He's such a great tackler. So North Melbourne, we saw the week before, they were like the lowest in the comp when it came to ruck stoppages.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a super high stoppage game again on the weekend. So I actually think that coming up a team against Adelaide, who you would consider as a quote-unquote red team on the scale of hardness, I actually think it's going to be a better matchup for someone like Hayden Young, who, as a midfielder, gets more of his points in the contested style than you would probably think too, considering he's coming from the halfback role.
Fantasy Freako did just tweet out that Hayden Young ranks 5th at the Dockers for pre-clearance contested possessions and 14th for contested possessions in general play. So that stat would suggest that he's not doing a heap of his possession work in at the coalface.
That's Brayshaw, that's Sarong, that's
I think we're like resigned to that fact, but I do like what you're saying about the contest giving him that ability to cuddle and he'll still get out and get his ball sixes.
Because you see that matchup and you go, North Melbourne, he should go big, but it's like, okay, it's good for some players. Yeah. It's not good for every player.
Look at us biased Hayden Young fans. If he does this 75 shit again next week, it'll be a different discussion.
We'll start to have a more serious discussion, but I definitely think he's a hold for this week. Yep. All right, let's talk about, on the other end, some trade targets and players we are looking at, starting with your boy here, Tom Powell. I was waiting for that. How much I've got him as my number one trade target. I actually don't think that's going to change for me between now and Friday. He was someone that we had discussed in the preseason. He's come out and shown that he has got a bit of a ceiling. He's priced very cheaply. Obviously no buy. And like top 2 mid, basically, in his side.
Yeah, that's my feeling on it as well. If it was one that was coming completely from left field that we hadn't even considered or talked about in the preseason, then I think it would require just a little bit more skepticism, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty confident, given that it was something that we were considering, and that role looks really, really good. I think, based on his last 2 performances, you don't see the role going anywhere else. And we know that, he's probably bought himself at least a few more weeks in that role to continue to show what he's doing.
I think so, sure.
I feel like I'm all in on it as well.
Scenario. Okay. Come Thursday night,
Phillips is named.
Phillips is named. Does that dent your confidence a little bit, or are you still happy to launch?
To me, if he was, it would feel like a really stupid selection decision if he was named to replace, what Powell's doing in there.
I'd have to think if he was named, and there's a chance he is, he's coming in for Lazaro, and because Lazaro got subbed out.
And so that's just kind of that straight swap, and we just see Powell continue to do
maybe
his thing.
Powell's not super high, but I still think I'd be happy to launch based on how well he performed.
Yeah, this is a game we didn't watch, so we're going off scores and Twitter. And
there was a lot of things I saw that people were saying. You obviously played a great game. Maybe I'll get time to go back and watch this game. Maybe I won't. So come Friday, I might have a more educated opinion. Number 2 here, I do have Matt Crouch. The question I'll ask you, is it too late? Is it too late to get Matt Crouch? He's the guy we should have picked instead of Ollie Wines.
He is.
He's now at 791,000, priced at 89. I have in my spreadsheet here, priced at 89. What do we see him doing?
I don't know if it's a stubborn part of me, but I still don't see him averaging. I see him averaging between 95 and 100. Mm-hmm. But is that me being too stubborn? And he's now shown.
I'm starting to entertain the possibility that he could be like a 105 guy.
What do you see Laird and Dawson as then, in that case?
I think Dawson could be the player that maybe goes down a little bit to make way. But also, the scoring in Adelaide it's there.
Currently they're all 110 guys.
Yeah, they're literally all averaging 110.
Are they going to be like what the Bulldogs have been in the last few years in terms of it's just everyone gets a
There's a reason I picked Dawson, because I think he's a level above the other 2. But as much as we love Laird, the difference between him and Crouch, especially at the moment, it's not super. He had 38 touches on the weekend. He found a shit ton of it. Didn't even tackle that well. That score could have been way bigger.
He's a ball magnet, eh?
He's a ball magnet.
What was his time on ground, did you say?
It was still low. I think it was 73% or something like that. So he's done that in back-to-back games. So that's still the thing. 74% this week, 73% the week before. I I don't think it's too late. I don't think it's too late if you want to make the jump from Wines to him. I would tick it off. It's something I'm definitely looking at this week. Not by any means locking into it, but I think that if you're going to do it, this is probably the last week, but I don't think it's too late to jump on a Crouch. But I would probably want to do it this week before it goes over the 800k mark. But yeah, you may be less keen.
I think I'm stubborn. I think it's like one of those ones, and it's not the right way to be. I'm not saying be
Selby
that
talks
way.
about this though. It's like being stubborn versus being what's he said, like patient versus stubbornness.
Yeah,
you know, you're patient on your guys, patient on things to all fall out in the wash versus being stubborn and obviously reacting to what you're seeing. It's a hard line, very hard line.
Yeah.
Next guy here, Massimo D'Ambrosio, super impressed. I did not actually think he'd back up his score that he put up, but he did it again. And he did it a little bit differently. He obviously had the more marks in this past game, so 8 marks. Got a little bit involved in the waxing in that game, but still 23 touches, 4 tackles is something I didn't expect to see from him as well. Went 96. Nothing's really going to change for their team, I would think, although the game on the weekend was pretty poor, so maybe they do swing some magnets around. But
he's now shown, so we saw obviously 2 very distinctly different Hawthorn styles in round 1 and 2.
Scored well in both.
He has, so he scored 95. So I got up early this morning before work and had to play around with my team, and there's scenarios where I've been using the DPP of Elliot Yeo to maybe shift like a Wines to him and play with that full rookie. Midfield as well. So there's not really anyone aside from maybe Salem that I want to get off in the back line. I know you're big at getting players off, but in this, so there's a callback to like one of the early episodes. So, so that's kind of where my head is at a little bit. He's definitely a guy that's in my calculations this week.
Yeah, he's an issue. I think that what's the question, I guess, that I'm struggling with, again, I like to project where I think a player can average. What do you think he can average from here? He's priced at 62, so he's still really cheap. Is he a guy that goes 80 plus?
I think a conservative estimate, I think he's an 80 plus guy.
I agree. I wouldn't have said that a couple of weeks ago. I did not think he had that 80 plus.
High side, 85, 90. And that's still...
You really think... Yeah, wow.
High side.
So
yeah. I think that's like a safe...
So you do think he's got maybe 20 points still left of upside?
And that's kind of where my head's at. Well,
that's a great trade in then. That's a great trade in.
It would be. The only thing that concerns me is going, okay, they want the ball in his hands. He's a distributor across half-back. But that's also what I thought of Amon to start the season. And so if Amon starts to get his, does that impact on what D'Ambrosio's doing? Also, we know that Sicily is inexplicably loves to just wax himself as well.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something to say that if Amon and Sicily, start doing their thing, that maybe D'Ambrosio's a little bit more volatile, but he's definitely a guy I'm looking at.
Yeah, he's been very impressive, and I'm going to have to go back and look at some stats, but has he been playing pure half-back, or is he getting up on a wing as well? Like, I don't know if you've watched him that closely. He's not super been on my radar, but...
Yeah, I
want to go back and look at that.
I think for the most part it's been half-back, but still pushing up high to get some possessions high up the ground as well.
A couple of other defenders that I'm also looking at. Jordan Clark, someone that if he didn't start, he's gone back-to-back 90s. If you wanted to make a little switch over from like a Salem type to him, I think he's still a decent option.
You pay a fair bit more for him than you do D'Ambrosio. They've done effectively the same thing to start the year. Do you have that same where do you see his scoring at a confidence?
I do have more confidence that he's going to be a guy that scores where I expect like a 90-plus kind of score. Obviously, I don't think D'Ambrosio has to go that, but...
Yeah. But you feel more confident.
I have a tougher time projecting D'Ambrosio, which means my confidence in him continuing doing that is lower than my confidence in Clark continuing to do that. That's what you get paying for, so risk versus reward there.
Even with Freo injuries, do you think Clark's going to still be able to play that like less accountable
role? He's not there to defend. He's not there to defend.
New age defending.
So he's there to get the ball and kick it out. So I still think he's a decent target. And Marcus Windhager is a guy that I was keen on in the preseason. Obviously, he had that broken hand in that community series game.
Yeah.
Played round 1. Didn't score too well in that game, but played better in this game, had the role. So he was right up there in the CBAs. Now, he scored 83. It was a bloody good-looking 83, I'll tell you that. He did have 3 frees against, so couple of those swing the other way. It is maybe a 90-plus score. Priced cheaply, he's around that D'Ambrosio price stat figure. I don't think you have to launch this week is the thing that maybe saves him or puts him maybe a bit lower on the list. I think you can get another look at his scoring potential and role. But the role is there, 100%. And
what was his go in round one?
Round one, he just didn't get much. He had low time on ground, so 72% time on ground, 81% this past game.
He's gone from 17% CBAs to 83 as well.
Oh, he's gone right up. So obviously they also dropped Crouch, was another big thing. So he maybe ascended up the pecking order.
That to me would scare me a little bit with the volatility of that.
So see it again?
Well, I think see it again, and also I think Crouch was dropped, yes, but there's every chance that Crouch over the course could earn.
I'd expect him to be back in at some point.
Do you know what I mean? So that might...
Yeah, you lose Mason Wood. There's a wing spot there. Maybe Windhager can fill a bit more of that wing.
It's a drastic change in 1 week to then confidently go, well, this is his role. So
he's definitely one that I think is a target, probably more of a watch list guy, but yeah, definitely have him on there. To finish up, guys that are on the screen here, I'm also watching, or you could jump into Max Holmes. I think is done... I think if you wanted to go like an aim on to him, make a bit of cash for a similar type of player, I think that I prefer him, but maybe lower priority. And Isaiah Wangani-Miller came out and reminded us what a gun he is, 122 points, with Sinclair coming back in. And those two actually, I thought, worked to look for each other a lot in that game.
It felt that way. I only saw a quarter of it, but it definitely felt like Potter was like the third wheel back there.
It was like
being main man in the date to just fucking carry the handbag.
Yeah, so it did feel a bit that way. Like they've got the chemistry a bit more together, and it almost looked like it benefited Wanganeen's scoring potential. But I think he has a potential to be a top 6 defender. So if you wanted to get to a more premium level defender, I think there's a little bit of value. Probably not enough for me at this point of the season, but I am a big fan, of course. All right. That might do it for us there, mate. Anything you wanted to chat about before we wrap this one up and finish up?
I think worthwhile talking about this Friday's a little bit different being...
Yes. So we've got the Good Friday. So obviously games are going to be a bit earlier. There is a early game, I believe, 4:20 for Melbourneers out there, 3:20 for us Queensland people, and... too many time zones to go through every single time zone. But that means that our live show for the second week in a row is going to be a slightly different time. We will be doing it before that North Melbourne and Carlton game. Probably around, 2 hours before the game, roughly. We'll give you a specific time, but we're moving back to the Friday live show.
Will we have a technical... malfunction this week on the live show?
The odds, the money's got to say yes. The odds have got to say yes.
Yeah, I'd be taking yes on that.
But hopefully we'll try and...
There's only so many times it's funny after a certain amount.
Then it's just sad.
It's just sad.
The thing is, though, it's a fucking different thing every time.
Like, correct.
We haven't had the same tech issue twice.
The one time we were on for a perfect one, it was me going dun 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 dun. It's like that's the only thing that ruined it.
Yeah, so we've had frozen video, we've had no audio, we've had Luke's scene in the background. Like, what else can we do that goes wrong? So, we'll tune in to find out, if nothing else. Come in to see how much we stuff it up. But yeah, do check us out. Make sure as well, guys, if you haven't already, give us a big thumbs up on the video, like and subscribe the video. Hit that notification bell so you are reminded when we are going live on Friday. And if you haven't already, go over.
I think we're good too. I don't have to lit the camera. I think the smoke has dissipated.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. We were just on fire during this podcast, I reckon. And
something's going to explode behind us.
Down. Though, make sure go over to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you haven't done already. And we will see you next time. Good luck trading this week. Bye.